Copper prices losing steam on Tuesday as China slows faster than expected in the third quarter. So Eric, now this was the slowest reading since 2009, but China still grew 9.1%. What's the short-term and long-term outlook for copper prices on this news?
At 9%, we really don't think that there's a hard landing in sight for the Chinese economy. Our longer-term aspects is they're going to continue to grow at a reasonable and moderate pace.
Right, I read from Commerce Bank today that 479,000 tons of copper was produced in September. That was down from August. That's in China. Does that mean they'll have to perhaps import more copper to make up for the lack of production?
Last week we saw some interesting figures come out in terms of Chinese stockpiles. I've seen some interesting figures about the lack of scrap copper available in China on the ground. They've used their stockpiles, they've gone through scrap, they're not producing as much. So that all leads me to believe that they are still going to be very good importers of the material for this foreseeable future.
So are they tactical buyers? Do you think that they're going to buy copper when prices are low to stockpile and then weed through that stockpile when copper prices are high?
In 08, 09, we definitely saw a very large buying spree on a lot of different commodities, especially copper, and that's when those initial stockpiles were in fact put in place. Those stockpiles were worked off when we did see copper over $4, in which they were re-imported back to LME warehouses. At this point, we definitely believe that they're going to be buyers here at the lower numbers. We're off well over 30% from the higher numbers. We have recently seen a 15% bounce, but I think copper is trying to find a bottom in here.
Right. All right, well, that's the demand picture. Let's go to the supply picture. We heard today that Freeport might have to shut down its Grasberg mine for a much longer time than expected, really disrupting supply there. What's the impact on copper prices?
Well, Freeport has two issues. Their New Guinea Papanapu line, I could be pronouncing it incorrectly, but they've been on strike for over a month. Their other division in Peru also been on strike, and this could snowball into a complete work stoppage, which will definitely affect the amount of material available.
Do you think that will lead to investors and industrial companies taking metal out of warehouses?
We have seen an increase in cancel warrants on LME over the last month from under 10,000 tons, which means that copper going to be taken out of the warehouses. In August, that number was about 10,000. We've seen that number increase to 60,000 tons. So we've seen a rather large jump in cancel warrants, which would indicate people willing to take material out of warehouses.
All right, so then real quick then, what's the bottom and how are you trading it?
I'm a buyer on dips. I'm still looking for higher numbers next year and challenge the highs and maybe make new highs, but we won't go that far right now.
How about the low?
I think we have a spike bottom technically in close to $3, which we were looking for, maybe a dip below there, and I hope we don't revisit that.
All right, great, Eric. Thanks. I really appreciate it. So copper, trading on headlines, not on fundamentals.